If you're between 28 and 40 and you've been wondering whether the number in your accounts is where it should be, this video gives you the answer. Not a motivational range, not a vague guideline. Specific numbers at 4 checkpoints across the 30s, based on median income data, standard savings assumptions, and the compound math from the last 3 videos. The goal isn't to make anyone feel behind. The goal is to replace the anxiety of not knowing with the clarity of a benchmark. I'm Warren, and the reason this video follows the snowball math from video 16 is that the snowball only means something if it has a timeline attached to it. Knowing the curve bends is useful. Knowing when it should bend, based on a specific age and a specific income, is actionable. Today is the actionable version. The framework. Fidelity publishes a widely cited guideline that says a person should have 1 times their annual salary saved for retirement by age 30, 3 times by 40, and 10 times by 67. That's a useful starting frame, but it's too coarse for the 30s, because the 30s are the decade where the snowball either builds or stalls. One benchmark at 30 and one at 40 leaves 8 years unmapped. This video fills in the gaps at 30, 33, 35, and 38. 4 checkpoints, 4 benchmarks. Each one calibrated to a salary of $60,000, which is roughly the median full-time individual income for Americans in their early 30s. Age 30. Benchmark. Net worth of roughly $60,000. That's 1 times annual salary matching the Fidelity guideline. Broken down, about $40,000 to $45,000 in retirement accounts, a 401k, and a Roth IRA combined. An emergency fund of roughly $6,000 to $8,000 covering 3 months of essential expenses. Consumer debt at 0 or close to it, meaning credit cards paid off, no personal loans. Student loan debt may still exist if the rate is below 7% per the rule from video 9, but it should be declining, not growing. $60,000 at 30 sounds aggressive to most people hearing it for the first time. The median net worth for Americans under 35 is roughly $39,000, according to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances. That means hitting the $60,000 benchmark at 30 puts a person ahead of more than half their age cohort. It's not average, it's the minimum needed for the snowball to be on schedule. Average, as video 2 showed in detail, leads to a retirement portfolio of roughly $36,000 a year. The benchmarks in this video aren't designed to match average. They're designed to match the compound curve. A medical device sales rep in Minneapolis named Elise turned 30 last October and pulled up every account she had on her phone the same week. Not because of this video, because turning 30 triggered the same instinct that hitting any round number triggers, the urge to measure. She opened the Fidelity app, the Chase checking, the Marcus savings, and a spreadsheet she'd been keeping since 28. Retirement accounts, $32,000. Emergency fund, $4,000. Credit card balance, $2,100. Net worth, roughly $34,000. She was $26,000 below the benchmark, not because she hadn't tried, because she started late. Her first Roth IRA contribution was at 27, 3 years after most compound calculators assume a person begins. She'd spent 22 through 26 paying off a car loan and building the emergency fund, which is the correct order from the pyramid in video 7. But the compound math doesn't give credit for correct sequencing if the sequencing started late. Those 3 missing years, as the snowball math from video 16 showed, cascade. A dollar invested at 22 has 13 more years of compounding than a dollar invested at 35. By the time both dollars reach 60, the 22-year-old dollar has grown to roughly 17 times its original value. The 35-year-old dollar has grown to roughly 6, same dollar, different starting point, 3 times the outcome. Elise wasn't behind because of bad decisions. She was behind because of a late start. And late starts are fixable if the protocol adjusts. Here's the part that matters for anyone at 30 who's below the benchmark. The gap is recoverable. The 30s are long. A person at $34,000 instead of $60,000 can close the gap in roughly 4 to 5 years by increasing their savings rate from 15 to 22% and capturing their full employer match. That's not comfortable. It's not invisible. But it's possible, and the compound curve from videos 15 and 16 is working in the background the entire time. Every dollar contributed during the catch-up years enters the snowball during its mass building phase, which means those dollars have more time to compound than any dollars contributed later. Age 33, benchmark, net worth of roughly $105,000. That's about 1.75 times annual salary. Retirement accounts, 70 to 80,000. Emergency fund, fully funded at 3 to 4 months of expenses, roughly 8 to 10,000. Consumer debt, 0. Student loan balance declining, ideally below 30,000 if it started higher. Savings rate, minimum 18% of gross income, including employer match. 33 is the first checkpoint where the snowball should be visibly building. The retirement account should be generating noticeable growth from compound returns, not just contributions. If a person checks their Fidelity or Schwab account at 33 and the annual market growth is roughly 5 to 7,000, the snowball is on track. If the annual growth is under 3,000, the balance is likely below 50,000, and the person is still in the flat section of the curve. Elise at 33 has closed about half the gap. She increased her savings rate to 21% after a salary adjustment to 64,000. Her retirement accounts sit at about 68,000. Emergency fund, full. Credit card, 0 for 2 years. Net worth, roughly 74,000. Still below the 105 benchmark, but the trajectory has bent. The curve from video 15 is starting to show in her numbers. The monthly growth from compound returns now averages about 400 on top of her contributions. Small, but present, and growing. Age 35. Benchmark, net worth of roughly 150,000. That's about 2.5 times salary. This is the midpoint of the 30s and the most important checkpoint in the entire decade because at 150,000, the snowball has reached the mass threshold where compound returns become the dominant driver. At 10% nominal return, 150,000 generates roughly 15,000 in annual growth. If the person's annual contribution is 8 to 10,000, the market is now contributing more than they are. The crossover from video 15 has happened. The second engine is running. 35 is also the age where the gap between the person who started at 22 and the person who started at 27 becomes most pronounced. Devon from video 13 crossed 100,000 at 32. Priya, who started later and paused once, was at 41,000 at the same age. At 35, Devon's portfolio is somewhere around 170,000. Priya's is around 70. Same decade, same job market, same index fund. A $100,000 gap created almost entirely by timing and consistency. 35 is where that gap becomes either surmountable or permanent. A person at 70,000 at 35 can still reach the milestones in this video. A person at 20,000 at 35 has a much steeper climb because the grind zone hasn't even started yet. If you reach 35 and the net worth is at or above 150,000, the rest of the 30s are about maintaining pace. The snowball is rolling. The curve is bending. The hard work of the grind zone is behind. If the net... That's roughly 3.5 times salary. Retirement accounts, 160 to 180,000. Emergency fund, 6 months of expenses, roughly 12 to 15,000. This is the level Fidelity suggests should be at 3 times salary by 40, meaning 220,000 at 38 puts a person slightly ahead of that guideline with 2 years of room. At 220,000, the snowball is firmly in phase 2 from video 16. Annual compound growth at 10%, 22,000. Annual contribution at 20% savings rate on 65,000, 13,000. The market is contributing almost twice what the person puts in. The monthly statement shows growth figures that rival the contribution. The person opening the app sees the number climb by 3 to 5,000 in a good month without contributing anything beyond the automatic transfer. That experience, the experience of watching the balance move on its own, is the emotional reward for everything the person did during the grind zone at 27, 28, 29. The grind didn't feel rewarding at the time. It feels rewarding now. 38 is also the last realistic checkpoint before the 40s, where the investment timeline shortens and the math becomes less forgiving. A person who reaches 220,000 at 38 and maintains their trajectory will cross 500,000 around 45 and 1 million around 52. Those projections assume nothing changes. Same contribution, same return, same patience. A person who reaches 38 at 100,000 has a steeper but still viable path. The compound curve still bends. It just bends later, and the person needs to maintain a higher savings rate for longer to reach the same milestones. Elise at 38 will reach approximately 190,000 if she maintains her current trajectory, still below the 220 benchmark. But here's the detail that makes her story representative rather than exceptional. The gap between her current trajectory and the benchmark is shrinking every year because the compound curve bends more steeply as the balance grows. At 30, she was 26,000 below. At 33, 31,000 below. At 35, roughly 20,000 below. At 38, 30,000 below in absolute terms. But the portfolio's annual growth is now contributing more to gap closure than her paycheck adjustments are. The snowball is doing the catch-up work. The system she built at 27 is solving the problem that the late start created. The catch-up protocol for anyone below the benchmarks at any age. It has 3 components and no menu. First, increase the savings rate by 1 percentage point every quarter until reaching 22 to 25%. Most people can absorb a 1-point increase without noticing it in daily spending, especially if timed to coincide with a paycheck cycle. Quarterly increases compound. 1 point every 3 months means 4 points in a year from 15 to 19%, which redirects an additional 2,000 to 3,000 annually into the snowball without any lifestyle change that registers consciously. Second, capture every employer match dollar available. If the 401k offers a match and the contribution isn't at the match ceiling, raising it to that ceiling is the single highest return action available. As shown in video 7 with Leo and Nate, missed match dollars are the most expensive losses in personal finance because they never compound. Each missed year of match at $170 a month, compounded for 25 years, costs roughly $140,000 at retirement. Third, redirect windfalls. Tax refunds, bonuses, side income, gifts. Every unexpected dollar that enters the picture has 2 destinations: spending or snowball. The person who directs 75% of windfalls into the investment accounts accelerates the catch-up without increasing the baseline monthly sacrifice. Elise directed her entire tax refund of $2,800 into her Roth IRA 2 years in a row. Those 2 deposits, roughly $5,600 total, compounded at 10% for 25 years, will be worth approximately $61,000 at retirement from 2 tax refunds. The catch-up protocol doesn't require dramatic sacrifice. It requires systematic redirection of money that was never part of the baseline budget. If you're in your 30s and the numbers in this video don't match the numbers in your accounts, that's not a verdict. It's a measurement. A measurement tells the distance between 2 points and nothing else. It doesn't say the destination is unreachable, it says how far the remaining road is. And the road, as every video in this series has shown, gets shorter with every mile traveled because compound interest makes the next mile shorter than the last. The benchmarks: 60,000 at 30, 105,000 at 33, 150,000 at 35, 220,000 at 38. 4 numbers, 4 checkpoints. And for the person who hits them, the 40s are where the curve goes vertical. Next, the crossover point. The exact portfolio size where the money starts earning more per year than the person does. It's the single most transformative number in all of personal finance, and most people cross it without realizing what just happened. That's the next video.